Hello, everybody. It's about 12 noon, so we're going to get started. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's webinar is Self-Care for the Soul, and you might find that we're going to talk about things in a very different way than what you're used to as it relates to self-care. And so just hang with us. We're going to talk about really what self-care is and what it's not. And so we'll give you some tips and tools along the way and present it in maybe a way that you've never heard it. And so thank you so much for joining us. We are glad you're here, and we'll start out with intro and then continue from there. So my name is Stacy Bessinen. I have been with Allina Health for about 20 years. I've been with the Change to Chill program since it started. And really my whole goal in what I do around wellness for our community is really try to help people live their best life around all areas of wellness. And one of them is self-care. So welcome and thank you. And then I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, and that's Jana Netterfield.
Oh, hello, everybody. My name is Jana Netterfield. I work for Allina Health as well, and also have been with Change to Chill since its inception, and love everything wellness. And also, I am a self-proclaimed mindfulness practitioner who really was challenged from the very beginning with the concept of self-care and mindfulness and what it's all about. So it will be an interesting journey today to talk a little bit about how personally things evolved for me and how it translated into what I preach and teach along with Stacy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jana. And then we also have Jamie Backus on with us, and she will be looking over the chat and be filling in some, if you have any questions, feel free to put them into chat, and she will answer them and give you some more information about what to expect after the webinar. So check that out. And we will have some time for chat as well. So we'll have some time to break out and just hear what you have to say around some questions that we ask. So let's start with learning objectives. And so when it comes to self-care, we want to look at how simple it is. You know, we care for ourselves, right? It's very simple in theory, but it's really more challenging in practice. It's easier to take care of others. And I hear this all the time. It's really hard to take care of ourselves in a way that's very nourishing and comfortable. And sometimes we feel guilty for doing that. We feel like it's selfish, but we know that it is not selfish. And we'll be talking about why in a little bit. Self-care can be something that we often overlook or put on the back burner. We have so many responsibilities. We want to take care of those first oftentimes. And so some of our objectives we'll be talking about today will be defining self-care and really looking at what that means and what fulfills you and what drains you as it relates to self-care practices. We'll also be identifying some self-care habits and activities in your own life, like really give you time to reflect and then also give you time or give you some things to think about. So when the webinar is done, you'll have time to really reflect on what are those activities and self-care habits that really help you live your best life. And then we also have some resources to practice completing a self-care plan for you in the days to come to really make it robust and feel like yep, today's the day. I'm going to start this plan to make sure I'm living my best life. So let's define it. What is self-care? It's just the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health. And really, we're looking at that definition as action. I mean, it is an action. It's to preserve your own health. And then it's really taking that active role in protecting your own well-being and happiness. And of course, it's really one time that is the most important is during periods of times of stressful times and hardship times when we feel like we're feeling that stress in our body and sometimes that overwhelmingness and that that feeling just takes over where it feels like we don't have time to even think about taking care of ourselves. So we'll kind of discuss that. So as it relates to self-care, like I mentioned before, we have a lot of responsibilities on our plate. You know, things just keep coming, and so many changes that have been happening in the last, 6, 7 months, 8 months, and now continuing, especially with more shutdowns, and we're trying to find that new normal, and what does that even mean? And we're pulled in so many different directions, and we have our job, our family relationships, our own home, and then just to make sure that it is our responsibility, we need to take an active role in that self-care too, and that's why it's listed on this list. And then of course others. So there's so many different responsibilities that we take on, and oftentimes we can get so overwhelmed, and that can really take precedence. So what is it all about? We really want to define for you and give you an opportunity and a chance to really reflect on what is helping you live your best life. What's fulfilling you as it relates to self-care, and what's draining you as it relates to self-care. And so let's look a little bit further into these. So anything that fulfills you as it relates to self-care practices are those that really align you with your values, your health, and your purpose. When you're done doing them, you feel refreshed. You feel like, oh, okay, I just feel more energized, and I feel like I've done some self-care. You feel accomplished, and you feel like yourself. And we'll talk a little bit about what some of these practices may be, and how to find them, and really what they mean to you. And then those draining self-care practices are those that you can kind of think back at the end of the day and say, why did I waste my time doing that? Oftentimes these activities serve to procrastinate other projects that you feel like maybe guilty doing, or that you're just kind of putting off for a while. So kind of reflecting on these two things. Maybe if you have a pen and paper with you right now, you can, maybe you had some aha moments, like, oh my gosh, I don't have any self-care practices that make me feel refreshed and accomplished and feel like myself. Or you're like, yep, I can pinpoint 3 draining self practices that I do every day that I would like to kind of make a little change around, and pivot to something a little bit more fulfilling for myself. So kind of thinking about your whole day, and that schedule that you have for yourself. And really, self-care is all about cultivating yourself. And like I mentioned before, oftentimes we feel selfish. We feel like self-care is selfish, and we also feel like we feel guilty for doing it. But we know that what happens is when we care for ourselves, we have more energy to care for others. So, and that's where the service of others comes into play. Sometimes, I know for myself, when I know somebody's love language is gifts of service, I really want to make sure that I honor that love language, and service their needs as to what's important for them. And then that makes me feel good, and it also makes me feel like that's part of my own self-care. So service of others is definitely in there as we cultivate ourselves. The ability to nurture others. When we care for ourselves, when we nurture ourselves, then we're able to nurture others. And then again, like I mentioned, when we care for ourselves, and when we cultivate kind of the world around us for ourselves, we have more energy to not only give to ourselves, but give to others, and give to all those responsibilities that I listed earlier. And then, and you've all may have heard about, when you get on an airplane, and the flight attendant always says, put your oxygen mask on you first. And so if you don't, what will happen? And what will happen is you'll pass out, and then the people around you, if they need help, will not get any help. So once you get that oxygen mask securely on yourself, then you can help out everyone around you, and even more if you need to. So oxygen mask goes on yourself first. And then we have this kind of statement as it relates to self-care, and it's called efficiently, effectively, and consistently. And so we will go through those three things in a little bit and kind of explain what that means. And it's kind of a good way to kind of think of if you feel guilty or overwhelmed, how can you best have a self-care plan that can be efficient and effective and consistent? And we'll go through that in a moment. And the ultimate goal is really to never run on empty. And have you ever felt that way where you're just completely depleted? Your body gets sick, or you're so overwhelmed where you can't do anything. You have to like stay in bed, and you're basically forced to do self-care. So our ultimate goal is to never run on empty, to notice those times where you're starting to run low. It's just like our car. When our car is full, it can go for miles and miles, and then as the car gas tank gets more empty, our car might start sputtering, and we know we need to get to the gas station as soon as possible. So making sure that we're not just sitting on the side of the road without gas. So the ultimate goal is to never run on empty. And then ultimately, all of this is to prevent that crash that I was just talking about. Our body will eventually tell us that it's done if we're not doing self-care, where we don't have a choice. We need to eat. We need to, get some sleep and rest and do those self-care needs that we've been putting off. So ultimately, our goal is to really cultivate ourselves to be able to live our best life in the most efficient, effective, and consistent way possible. And so I have a couple of acronyms that I want to go through. And so hopefully this will help you to kind of think about, am I doing self as it relates to what are those top things that you need in your life. And so the first one, S, stands for sleep. And sleep is so very important for your whole body health, and especially for your brain health. We don't often think about our brain as it relates to sleep. We just think of our body needs rest, but that's when your brain does the most work. It needs that downtime so it can kind of file all those long-term and short-term memories. It's when your body really does a lot of detoxification work, and your brain does a lot of detoxification work. If you get enough sleep, then you'll have more patience. You'll have more patience for yourself and for others. You'll also be more effective in everything that you do. Just think of a time where you're lacking sleep. How does that feel? Kind of feel run down. You're tired all the time. You don't have any energy to do much. So getting enough sleep helps you become more effective. And then, of course, sleep is medicine. So overall wellness will benefit, and that's always a good thing. The E stands for exercise. And so, of course, exercise is medicine. It can help you become more fit and strong and help maintain your independence for a longer time. It helps with overall health and wellness. And confidence, self-confidence is huge as it relates to exercise. And then those good feeling endorphins get released when we're doing something active. And then again, our brain health. We know that it gets that heart rate up, and that blood flowing, and that blood gets to the brain more easily. And I know when I have a lot weighing on me and I'm having a hard time thinking, if I just walk around the block, it feels like I've been gone for hours, and it feels like the whole weight of the world has been lifted off my shoulders sometimes. And sometimes my husband will say, "So did you solve all the world's problems?" And I'm like, it does feel like that sometimes. And it's just like a quick couple minute walk, and it's amazing what that can do. So exercise is medicine. And then the L stands for love. And so oftentimes we get so busy that we can forget about this. And so it's really important as it relates to staying socially connected with other people. At this time, it can be really hard when we need to self-isolate and quarantine and not have that face-to-face, touch-to-touch relationships. But we know phone calls, texting, which I'll talk about in a moment, anything that can really help just reach out and connect with someone is so very important, and to cultivate those adult relationships, if you're over 18, and even when you're a teen or a young a young teen or younger, it's very important. But as we get older, with all those relationships or all those responsibilities, it's harder to cultivate some adult relationships, but it's really, really important for so many different reasons, either with significant other, your friends that you've had in the past, new friends that you make. So a few things that happens when we really take the time to cultivate adult relationships. The first one is humor. So oftentimes it's hard when something bad happens or hard happens, if we can, have somebody to kind of just talk to. Oftentimes I'll go, oh, that happened to me too. And then you kind of keep talking about it. And after you talk about it, it kind of releases that stress. And then you can sometimes find the humor in it. And then if they say, oh, that happened to me too, then you have that kind of common bond and that common humanity that when we cultivate adult relationships, that's so very important, to find that common humanity around us. And then also perspective. So you can gain perspective by cultivating adult relationships. Sometimes when we find ourselves alone all the time, we kind of feel like we're alone and we're the only one. And so when we kind of get, talk to somebody else, we can gain that perspective of knowing that you're not alone. We're all in this together, and we're all having a hard time, and it's nice to be able to reach out and relate to what's going on. And then that mental health break, of course, because just being able to share and offer support and feedback is kind of a two-way street. And then of course that connection. We all, as human beings, we need to be connected with others. It doesn't matter if you're introverted or extroverted. It's just, so if you're introverted, you get your energy through, if you're introverted, you get your energy through being alone, but then you can have some people time too. And if you're extroverted, you get your energy with being with people, but you also need alone time too. So it's just how you recharge your energy sometimes. So neither one is right or wrong, but we need that connection in both cases. And then that F stands for fun. So we can't take the fun out of the equation, not ever. And the more I talk to people either over the phone or through these chats, it's, fun can be really hard right now because everything is just so different, and we have to find that new normal and try to figure that out and relate to things differently. And so as it relates to self-care, we're looking at kind of hobbies that you've had in the past and really like to do, or that you currently do or would like to pick up again, things that you do for pure relaxation or pure fun, kind of thinking about those and reflecting on what do you really want to do. Oftentimes when we're having fun, it really makes you feel like who you are as a person. So what do you like to do? And when we're doing those things that we like to do, and we really get involved in our hobbies and get kind of really invested, and we're taking care of ourselves, you really find who you are and in your own uniqueness. And then what's really cool is you're more apt to find that and recognize that uniqueness in others as well. Through kind of finding yourself, it kind of ends up being a mirror to the world. So what you recognize in yourself, you start recognizing in others. So that is self. And then, like I had mentioned before, that efficiently, effectively, and consistently. So how do you really figure out that self-care in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming for you. And so efficiently is really achieving maximum benefit in a minimum amount of time. And I had that younger self versus now, because thinking about ourselves in our younger selves, we could dedicate a lot of time to hobbies or exercise or sleep or going out, hang out with friends all night. We could do that. We could spend about a lot of time. And now with all of our responsibilities, we have to really look at our timing as in um, we can't do the maximum amount of time. So I really recommend kind of thinking in terms of like maybe even 20-minute increments. And one of the biggest examples I can give is if you sit down and watch a 60-minute documentary or a 60-minute drama on TV or 60 minutes of TV, think of that time. There's 3 20-minute sessions right there. So maybe 20 minutes is spent on connecting with somebody, 20 minutes is spent on exercising, and maybe 20 minutes is spent on, just something else that really fills your cup. Just 20 minutes. And oftentimes people might be like, oh, 20 minutes is too long. It doesn't have to be all at once. It could be 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes later. So kind of thinking about how can you achieve the maximum benefit of whatever you're doing in the minimum amount of time. We don't need those hours like we had when we were younger. Because of all our responsibilities. So where can we fit that in and really take that time to do those effectively. So effectively really means that when you're doing that, you are really in that moment and you're taking that time for that mindfulness moment and being in that moment. So what you're doing is so very important in how you're doing it, and offering yourself a lot of grace to say, okay, right now I really need this self-care time and I really want it, and this is what I'm going to do, and take a couple of deep breaths and just say, yep, I'm right here in this moment, and just allow it to fill your cup. And then of course that consistently is many times over time. Every day, even if it's every day for 5 minutes. There's been so much research done on even writing in a journal for just a few minutes right before you go to bed or whenever you have time, just to get some thoughts down that you don't want to take into bed with you, where you just need to get them out of your mind. We do call that like resiliency writing. It is so very, very powerful. Your brain is trying to remember everything, and as soon as you write it down, your brain will go, oh, it's all right there. I can always come back to it if I need to. And so kind of getting all those thoughts down on paper is so very healing. And so that's just one example, but anything for self-care time that you do consistently, as you find it, if it's 5 minutes or 20 minutes a day, as Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. So kind of thinking of your current habits and what you'd like to tweak a little bit, and then adding in those other things. And then I have another acronym here, and it's P.A.R.T. And so it's connecting, and how do we connect? And so our ultimate goal is to be happy, healthy humans, right? And then having the people around us to be happy and healthy as well. And so I have this part in kind of thinking in terms of how you relate to others and how you connect to others. So that P stands for provide. So that's what we do for our kids, our friends, our family, our significant other, our partners, is we provide for our kids by working and earning money, or making meals, or whatever it is that we do. We provide for friends by phone call, or provide for the family by a lot of different things, and also our significant other and partners. So providing is part of it. Oftentimes, I'm going to skip down to the last one, and that's teach. Oftentimes we feel like that's all we need to do as it relates to kids and the people around us. We just need to teach others a variety of different things, especially with young kids. I feel like, oh, I need to teach them how to do this and how to do that, so then they can function as they get older. And actually, that's only the T in part. So we're teaching values, life skills, we're pulling them into the adult world to have them be able to lead um, a, a very productive life as they get older, but it's only the T. So as we go back up, and P is for provide, A is for arrange. We do arrange a lot of logistics in our lives for all their opportunities, doctor's appointments, and making sure that they're going to school, and timing, and all of that opportunities. And then the R stands for relating. And so this is a huge one. So we've been so busy, and kind of our minds are pulled in so many different directions, that our relating and spending quality time with our loved ones has really taken a back burner. So how can we feel like we're relating in a way that that is fulfilling ourselves, and fulfilling others as well? And so it really is that quality time. So if we're thinking of like let's say I can think of my 16-year-old. I really want to spend some quality time with him. He's a teenager. So how do I do that? What I do is I try to enter his world. I ask him, how school is, and can I see if he's playing video games, I'll go there, and I'll say, tell me about this, as he's playing, and I'll just sit and I'll just listen to what he has to say. So I try to enter his world as much as possible, because then what happens is I become the student of my child. I'm entering into his world and just learning a lot about him. And so I'm also recognizing what he likes and doesn't like, and I'm really seeing him for who he is. And that just the video game was just one area, but in anything, in their homework, in their their friends' lives, and how they're doing in all areas. And so I do have this 2, 6, and 20 minutes here. And so, this is a really good way of thinking about relating to people. So that 2 minutes is, as it relates to kids, kids need your undivided attention. 2 minutes in the morning when they first wake up. 2 minutes when you first see them in the day. So if they come home from school, 2 minutes. How was school? Just kind of having them, or making sure that they see that you've really seen them for those 2 minutes, and then 2 minutes before they go to bed. So that equals 6 minutes a day. 6 minutes a day of just really taking that time out to say, okay, research shows if I can give them 6 minutes a day, they'll really feel loved and connected. And then that goes into that 20 minutes. So let's say you have a kid who is kind of bugging you and just interrupting you all the time, and you feel like you're so busy that you just don't have time, you keep pushing them away. Kind of think about, at that time, that child needs time and attention. And if you can dedicate 20 minutes to really getting into their world and just sitting with them and connecting and just being there with them, you'll have hours on your hand to do whatever you want. And so it's a cool thing. And I've even used this for I have 3 boys, and sometimes my younger child just wants to be left alone, and he just wants to do his own thing. But then my middle child is like bugging him, like, come on, do this, do that. And so I've even whispered into my younger boy's ear, if you give him 20 minutes, you'll have hours to just do your own thing. And he does it. He'll go in there and go in the bedroom and say, hey, what do you want to do? And 20 minutes later, my middle one is content, and then my younger one has all the time in the world to do whatever he wants. So kind of thinking of those time frames, it doesn't take much. So that's a connecting part of P.A.R.T. So creating happy, healthy humans, and all of those things that you do around not only your kids, but your work, family, partners, coworkers, all of that, kind of what we need in not only for ourselves, but what others need in our lives. And so next we're going to be talking about transition, connecting, and rebuilding. So Jana, would you like to take part of this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So, you know, transitioning and connecting and rebuilding, the concept of mindfulness here really comes to play, making those mindful transitions between work, home, and before your project. So this one is really about how do you not bring your work home, or if you do work at home, which a lot of us do these days due to our situation, right? How do you not translate that into this becoming sort of your life? Your work becoming your constant environment. So there's recommendations out there and really good practices that we also talk a lot about. And one of them being, you know, before you transition from work environment to home environment at the end of the night, we call it like a mindfulness commute, so to speak. So if even if you are at home, take 15 minutes or whatever time you have, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever that looks like, build it into your workday. Make sure that this is your transition time from whatever you're doing on your computer in your office to being present with the kids, with your spouse, with your loved one, with a partner, or even with your animals, whoever is present in your life. How do you transition to it without taking your burden of your work with you? So, you know, at the end of the day, just plan on commuting, literally, even if you're going down from the basement to your kitchen area on the main level, still plan on that commute, mindfulness commute. And give yourself time. But the ways you can do that is even if you're working on a computer, you can disconnect from your Outlook, close out all of your projects, and literally check your Facebook or take a look at whatever else is going on in the world. Watch happy baby or puppy videos on YouTube, whatever that looks like. Or, you know, if you're a mindfulness practitioner and you have had experience with really sitting with yourself and being in quiet space, you can just start taking deep breaths. And at the end of the day, just say, okay, I'm going to close my eyes. And for 5 minutes, I'm just going to reflect on my day, relax, take deep breaths, and disconnect from my work. Another thing you can do, you can play music. And this is really good in terms of timing. You can always say, okay, for the next 2 songs, I'm going to play these 2 songs, whether you have YouTube up or a video player or music player of some sort. For the next 2 songs, I am just going to literally close my eyes and relax. That's what I'm going to do. So that transition is really important between projects. So try not to mix and match, because a lot of times we can disconnect from a previous task and we drag all of the baggage from that task into the new task. The research shows that this is actually the time when we relate to our children. This is actually the time when we tend to say no a lot more, because whatever we were doing before, our child asked that question, can I, whatever, we were doing something that would let us to believe that the next task, which is his question about can I go for a walk, or can you play with me, or can you spend time doing a puzzle or something like that, would lead us to say no. So it's really important to close out that previous chapter before moving on, and then reconnecting with yourself and with others. So what are those areas of connection for you? Like, how do you connect to yourself? You know, for me, and I mentioned it in the beginning of our presentation, for me, journey to mindfulness and journey to self-care is an evolution. It's still, I'm walking down this path every single day. It's really a journey. It's not a destination for sure. So for me, find this connection to myself always sounded like something that people say, and I have no idea what that actually meant. So if you are that person, I totally am 100% with you. I was always of the mindset that, you know, you get stuff done and you kind of, you know who you are and you move on with your life. I'm a very tasky person. So for folks like myself, or even if you're not in that boat, it's really important to find the area of connection. Like, what defines you other than the job that you do, other than the things that you feel like define you in terms of situational terms, like you have kids, so you're a mother, or you have a spouse, so you, in my case, I might be a wife, or your husband, or whatever that is. Other than those situational things, what else defines you? And it took me a long time to come to terms that I have to find something within myself that I really either enjoy or can connect to. And for me, it was really, and I'm using myself as an example just to illustrate, for me, it was really an interesting finding that I'm an artist, and I would never ever in my entire life would think that I would connect to artistic part of myself. But it really does help me become more mindful and find that sense of purpose that is grander than the task that I do on a daily basis. It's an evolution, so it's going to take you a little bit of time to arrive there. So try different things, kind of think about what you enjoy. Stacey talked a little bit about things that you really thinking about doing or maybe wanted to try. And then the other thing is connecting with others. You know, sometimes, and we use kids as an example a lot in today's presentation, but it applies to, you know, your loved ones, anybody and everybody, your neighbors, people at work that you see over Zoom or other web application these days, and don't get that personal interaction face to face. So how do you connect? And it's really tough, especially with our kids these days, because they are over, they're over here all the time. They're always present, right? And for those of you who are doing distance learning at home, it's even more true, right? So they tend to annoy us more than they tend to fulfill us. So how do you connect? How do you connect with that child that you actually love, with the child that you actually appreciate? So one of my kids is, actually two of my kids are in daycare. So with my 4-year-old, I drive him to daycare every morning, and we have a bunch of unfinished construction on the way to daycare. And one of the houses has been has been being built for quite a long time. And we talk about this house. We look forward to connecting about this house and talking about, is it done yet? When is it going to get done? What do you think the color of the house is going to be? What would you like your house to look like when you grow up? Are you going to build your own house? How many rooms would you have? And this conversation, we have the same conversation every single day, and it takes completely different twists and turns. You know, one day we talk about the fact that he wants to live in a forest and in a tree house, and the next day he wants to build a completely different house in a neighborhood with a pool. So, you know, it's those things that really help you connect, and they don't have to be big or grand, or they don't have to be, you know, this sit down conversation you know, that takes over an hour. It literally takes us 5 minutes or less to get to daycare and talk about this house that we discuss all the time. Now, when the house is finally finished, we're going to have to find something else to talk about, but that's beside the point. You know, that connection point can be very, very simple. And then rebuilding healthy, strong habits to live a meaningful life. Like, how do you live your best life? How do you live a meaningful life, right? Rebuilding what maybe you've lost. You know, we've been through this we've been through this challenging situation already with this pandemic in March, April, and we have lost that ability to go places and to have a normal setting that we normally would have when we wanted to go out to dinner, for example, right? And we just found out that that's going to be the case for the next 4 weeks again. So how do you look at that? How do you rebuild sort of mindfully your perspective of what your life is going to look like? And, you know, I would challenge everybody to think about this entire situation in terms of, well, can you change this? Is this something that you have control over? And if the answer, when you find out that the answer is no, what do you have control over? And the mind is such a powerful tool. This is where we can reshape, reprogram, and rebuild how we view things. And one of the things that we frequently talk about when we change perspective, when we think about how do you look at something in different light, we talk about seeing the opportunity. So where is the opportunity in this? And some people are fairly angry, and they would sit down and say, seriously? Opportunity in what? In this? There is no opportunity here. This just sucks. This is not fun. And that is true. We have to acknowledge and recognize that feeling. This is a very mindful approach to how we process ourselves, how we process our feelings. Yes, it's not fun. Yes, we grieve the loss of something that we are used to. Our kids grieve social environments. I mean, all these things. And what is the opportunity here? Opportunity to be creative. Stacey talked a lot about that. The creativity, especially, you know, where are you going to work out, right? It's winter. What is it going to look like? There's a lot of research you can put into it. And I have plenty of folks that I talk to and work with on a regular basis who found this really fun, creative ways of just getting their fitness on in the absence of access to the gym. Or Yes, absolutely. We love eating out. That is wonderful. And what an opportunity, if you don't cook, to learn how to cook, to start with some simple things like those HelloFresh kits, or maybe even branch out and venture out and try to make something out of nothing. Taking 5 random ingredients. I did this with my kids the other day. They pulled out 5 random ingredients out of the pantry, and it was like a game on one of those TV shows. What can we make out of this? And it was very random. I wouldn't say it was the tastiest thing ever, yet it brought us to this rebuilding stage and the stage of connection. So what is that moment of undivided attention that caused the connection? What did that look like for you? So this is our chat time. So I already shared my story as to what I do every morning with my 4-year-old son. I would love to hear from you. How do you connect? What are those maybe small things that link you to the people in your life who matter? Maybe to the pets in your life that you adore and share space and life with. How do you connect? So I would love it if we could see something in a chat box, if you guys are willing to share with us your points of connection.
I know sometimes it's like, oh, sending a random text to somebody and taking that 2, 6, or 20 minutes where, you can have a 20-minute connection over text or even a 2-minute. But even that is can be very powerful. Just sending a random text, thinking about you, how are you, can we set up a time to talk over the phone, and there's your 20-minute talk, and kind of thinking in terms of that. And I think Jamie's going to read through the texts or the chats.
Yeah. And even if you don't have an opportunity or nothing comes to mind, I really would love for you to reflect on what that looks like, what those moments look like for you. Jamie, do you have anything in the chat?
We have a couple. So we have someone who said they connect with a lot of people by telephone, some of whom they barely speak to or spoke to in person previously. So it's nice to get to know people better this way. Someone says they work in adult mental health, and at the end of their groups, everyone has to share an attitude with gratitude. So they share something that they're grateful for or thankful or happy about that day. Someone else shared running with their daughter, nighttime story time, and prayers with their son. And someone else shared when, Carla, thank you, when her husband makes her coffee every morning and delivers it to her workspace.
That is pretty amazing. I think I'm going to borrow that one and maybe introduce that as an idea to my spouse as well. And I think I see one more: helping my elderly mother with chores and errands. That's wonderful. So that point of connection there too, and trying to call my elderly mother on my way to work hands-free to check in. That is wonderful as well. Those are amazing ideas and amazing opportunities there. So completing the self-care plan, how to take care of yourself. This is one of the tools that's available on changetochill.org. You can download this particular worksheet. And this talks you through kind of the relationships, it makes you think about the things that matter. How do self-care, how to work through self-care practices that we talked about. And this is a self-care plan. It takes care of your emotions. How do you build your relationships, some core values, rest and play in their organization, school and work, and maybe how do you care for your body as well. So it kind of takes your emotional, physical, spiritual health and puts it all together. So we encourage you to take a look at that and maybe complete your own healthcare plan as well. And then if you would like to learn more and stay in touch with our offerings through Change to Chill, please sign up for a newsletter. You see the place where you can do that on our website, changetochill.org. And you can receive newsletter from us with some updates and fun news and tips on self-care and mindfulness. And then some upcoming opportunities for you as well. we're done with our full series of this particular presentations, but we have really interesting sessions available around conversations around conversations with diverse populations. So especially if you know someone or if you are part of one of those communities, these are really enlightening and really honest conversations around mental health and stigma and mindfulness as well. And then let us know what you think. You're gonna get the link via SurveyMonkey within 24 hours after we're done with this presentation. So please fill it out. Let us know how this presentation worked out for you, if it was helpful, and then what maybe some things that you have learned. And then check out our website, changeyourchill.org, and send us a note. If you would like a presentation to one of your groups, or if you're just interested in learning more, have questions or comments, please connect with us. So thank you so much for attending today's session. Again, you're going to receive a follow-up email, and we loved having all of you with us today.
So, and so we can stay on the line for a few more minutes if you have any questions, but feel free, if you need to go, feel free to drop off and send us any questions that you have. But if you have any questions right now, we're here.